Hello, and welcome to the Heroic Review, where we, the cast of Heroic Tales, talk about episodes, fanfiction, and other ponylicious things. Today, we will be covering Season 5, Episode 6, Appleloosa's Most Wanted, and joining me today are my panel of pony experts, Greg.
Hello all.
Grey Ramos.
Hola amigos.
Reverb.
Hello there, everyone.
Theatrefreak.
Hello.
And Webshoter.
Hey, everyone.
I am your moderator, Goombasa. So we are going to start off with our general impressions about the episode. Greg, why don't we start with you?
I really quite enjoyed the episode. I do like any time that we get to see parts of Equestria that we don't see often. And it's good to be back in Appleloosa for a change.
Great.
I didn't like this one at all.
Reverb.
I found a lot of it really quite dull. The new character was really quite repetitive, and there were a lot of similar elements with the last Appleloosa one. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little on the fence, but leaning slightly more towards the negative side.
Theater.
Normally, I am not a fan of Cutie Mark Crusader episodes, but I actually liked this one very much.
Webshotter.
I enjoyed the episode. I enjoyed today's episode pretty much for what it was. Another Cutie Mark Crusader episode where they try to figure out their talents and learn a life lesson. And also, I enjoyed the fact that we got to see Appleloosa again and we're able to see more of a different area.
I will say for my part that I enjoyed the episode, but it's not one that really stuck with me very, very much. Mostly because the plot was very by the numbers, with the only real big exception being that the Cutie Mark Crusaders in this episode were the ones teaching the lesson instead of getting taught the lesson. So with that being said, I will open the floor to general discussion topics. Does anybody have a topic they want to start us off with?
Troubleshoes?
Yeah, Troubleshoes seems like a good point to start. He was a big horse.
He was huge. The biggest, and I mean, not only was he huge, but I'm pretty sure his feet, or his hooves, sorry, were like the size of the actual little fillies.
And besides the horses from Saddle Arabia, I think this is the first time we've actually seen horses instead of ponies.
Yeah, he was probably a horse.
I got a very Eeyore vibe from this character.
So emo-ish all the time, and was like, I guess that's my luck.
I wouldn't call it emo, just very depressed with his lot in life.
Oh, bother.
Yes, it was very slow, very drolling, very, just a very, depressing character when we first see him, honestly.
Just like the episode.
And then towards the end is when he starts becoming a little more happier after learning today's lesson.
I know why he looks so familiar now. He's pretty much exactly a typical Clydesdale horse, with the coat colour and the massive, massive hooves.
A cameo from the Budweiser commercials.
He does have a very unique design, I think. I'm pretty sure this is the first time we've seen a model like that in the show.
And I'm going to say it right now. My headcanon is that he is Derpy's long-lost and estranged father.
That would save the episode.
Anything else to say about Troubleshoes?
Is it possible that he was almost as big or bigger than Big Macintosh?
I'd go bigger.
Oh, he was definitely bigger.
Well, at first, I was excited to see an actual legit antagonist in a CMC episode, because usually it's just the only antagonist they have to face is themselves.
Dun dun dun.
But honestly, I'm okay with them using the big misunderstanding card. Cliches are fine with me as long as they're backed up by good story and good characters. And I love Horse Eeyore as a character. Troubleshoes' lack of confidence and his bad reputation in town are just the perfect dramatic obstacles to overcome.
Greg?
Greg mentioned that cameo from the Budweiser commercials, so that makes me think that Troubleshoes is promoting Budweiser and promoting juvenile jailbreaks. So he's just a bad horse all the way around. Bad apple.
Reverb?
This is a bit of an extension from Troubleshoes, except I actually got a bit of a point to bring up in regards to his confusion about his cutie mark. I thought the idea of having a cutie mark that kind of appeared to be a curse is really quite cool and done in a much better way than the Apple Bloom episode previously, but I thought that was a really, really cool idea. But a massive problem I have with the way it was done here is that He got his cutie mark doing something different than what his actual special talent was. I know it's all sort of a part of the rodeo, but it's something entirely different. I mean, if you get your cutie mark at the Olympics while you're running and it's a javelin, then that doesn't make any sense. That's not how you're supposed to get a cutie mark. He got his cutie mark of what is effectively being a rodeo clown while he was lassoing. It's entirely different, and that makes no sense to me, and that kind of drove me a little crazy.
Greg?
Going to what you kind of said on that, the show has a lot of ambiguous cutie marks, so you could kind of argue that the javelin would mean you are a very sporty person, or, for example, track. You would be good at track sports, and that's what you do. But I do agree with you there. The horseshoe kind of thing, maybe you could stretch it out and work it into the rodeo and love of the rodeo sort of thing, but it doesn't make sense all the way through. It's a bad idea. I agree with you on that.
Greg?
I think a big part of it was cutie marks being not as concrete as they appear to be. I mean, it was the big point here was he didn't like it until he learned a different way to interpret it. Could be that cutie marks are all in how you look at things, you know?
I completely agree with that as the actual point of what the cutie mark means, except the entire moment of when you get a cutie mark is always, in the past, has been their moment of realization that this is my special talent, this is what I want to do, this is what I'm meant to be. And that was never his. That was never the moment where he got his cutie mark. And almost it would have made more sense to me if he got his cutie mark at the very end. When he did dress up as a rodeo clown, he realized that is what he's supposed to do. But the fact that he got his cutie mark and then that cutie mark sort of, almost possessed him to keep making mistakes and to be really clumsy is really quite unusual and really quite strange and not something we've really seen before.
Theater?
Well, actually, when you think about it, the only cases we've seen of cutie marks appearing on the show are either dream sequences, which really don't count, or the flashbacks of the main six getting their cutie marks. And those are all success cases, but we haven't actually seen a bad case of cutie marks, so I think this is the first one where we've actually seen a cutie mark appearing in a non-perfect way, which actually opens the door to a lot of other possibilities. So it's all open-minded, not just limited to getting cutie marks when you find out what you're great at, because there may be some other cases to it. But other than that, I loved the lesson they taught with it, because I've always seen the cutie marks as you have one talent and you have to look for it yourself, and other than that, you don't really have any agency over what your cutie mark is going to turn out to be. But the fact they showed that you do have some agency with how you can interpret what your specialty is, I think is just a good move.
Greg?
As far as the moment where he gets his cutie mark not making sense, the point Reverb was making, I have to respectfully disagree. Because in his whole voiceover, because again, this is a flashback, and we never see them except in flashbacks, do we? Anyway, he says that at that moment he realized what he wanted to do, which was to entertain the ponies at the rodeo. And that is what he winds up doing. He just completely misinterpreted how he was supposed to do it.
Well, he got his cutie mark and then he started messing up really bad. And if that was the actual line, then I missed it from the episode. And I certainly don't disagree with that at all. If that was the line, then that is actually really quite clever and almost a bit of a save. So yeah, I suppose that does work a bit. Although the fact that when he got his cutie mark, then he started being super clumsy is actually still really quite interesting to me, especially after the season opening episode, that cutie marks truly hold so much power over someone, while previously I always just used to think of them as a butt tattoo of what their special talent was, and that they don't really hold any power over them. So I thought that was quite interesting.
Okay. I think we can put this part of the discussion to bed and move on to another topic. What do we think of the CMC and Applejack this episode?
I thought that they played their roles pretty well in this one. I mean, they were just pretty much there with family at an event that, well, the family mostly does. And I don't know, to me, it didn't feel like that they were forced or squeezed into a role in this episode that worked against them.
Greg?
I feel like in this case, the setup for the episode makes a lot of sense. Them just wanting to watch Applejack and the rodeo, and of course the motivation to try things and get their cutie marks. And I also really appreciate how they handled Applejack's protectiveness here, as opposed to in Some Pony to Watch Over Me. Also, damn it, Brayburn, you had one job.
Yeah, let's start that whole "thanks, Brayburn" meme right now. Well, I actually like the fact that this episode had the Cutie Mark Crusaders actually helping someone else with Cutie Mark troubles, because as far as I can remember, in every other CMC episode, it usually revolves around them solving their own problems, not helping others. So it's a nice change of pace to see them crusading for the sake of other ponies.
Okay. Reverb?
I was actually going to point out that Brayburn was a little interesting in this, being able to see him for the second time again. Was he that clumsy and sort of strangely accident-prone and in the first episode? I don't remember he was. I remember he was like super hard-working. But yeah.
He, if I can remember correctly, he didn't really think things through and just went head-on straight into things. No, wait, that's wrong.
He was just very enthusiastic. That's his defining character trait in my mind.
I suppose breaking a leg will take that out of you.
If anything, from what I saw, I think he made the same mistake that a lot of other family members do when it comes to watching other relatives. Like, oh, I'm older than you. I can watch over you. You're not gonna be trouble at all. And then just one slip up later, next thing you know, I was like, wait, where'd they go?
Actually, that's something that I realize now don't match quite as well. In the first instance where he saw him, he was basically almost running the town himself. He knew everything that was going on. He was doing so much work. And in this one, he can't even stay awake long enough to watch 3 fillies. Now, I'm pretty sure it's due to different writers, but I reckon that takes away something from his character, which, like, the main thing which I used to connect to him as a character quite a bit was his hard-workingness and willing to, to do a great job and to take care of everything. But yeah, that's just my opinion. I thought that was a bit lost on him in this episode.
Well, the logical thing is that he probably took some pain meds and it threw him off his game.
Theater?
Well, actually, I have to disagree with Jason just because my own personal opinion is that I haven't gotten much character out of Brayburn in the whole episode where with the buffaloes and you gotta smile. I can't remember the name though. But I don't remember much about him from that one episode enough to... Yeah, I haven't gotten enough out of him in the first episode he appeared in to actually care about any major character changes to him.
To compare him to this episode.
I have a point for Jason and anybody else on this episode about Brayburn. This was actually a Dave Polsky episode. He also wrote Over a Barrel, which is when we first saw Brayburn and Appleloosa. So this is...
That's the name!
Yeah, Over a Barrel.
Ah, how about that? Sorry, I was wrong. Same writer.
It's also worth noting that there are 3 seasons between Over a Barrel and Appaloosa's Most Wanted.
So within that time frame, things could change and characters could change.
I mean, I pretty much, I suppose I know him more so from fan fiction work than from the actual episode itself.
That seems to be where a lot of the characterizations for a lot of characters that we know off-season seems to come from, is from the fandom. When the fandom take a little bit of what we've seen and just go running with it.
Gray?
I do have a point on this episode that I would like to bring up that I did enjoy, which is something I enjoy in most Pony episodes, is that they did a good job writing the characters. They stayed pretty much in character with Brayburn being an ambiguous question that we've had, but they did a good job writing it through. They've learned a lot from where they came because they would flop back and forth between everything, but as we've seen progression, a lot of continuity, that's one thing that we've seen a lot this season. And I feel like y'all mentioned we get a lot of stuff from the fandom in the off time, but I also feel like, specifically to me, this season 5, the creators of the show have brought in a lot of points that we had questions over in season 4 and season 3.
Greg?
Continuity-wise, I'm a little disappointed by the lack of pancakes in this episode. I thought season 5 was going to be the flapjack season, but it's not.
It's the cutie mark
It
season.
is, though. That's definitely something that's impressed me. There's a lot of delving into the depths of what a cutie mark is and how it affects you. And I really appreciate seeing that.
I would also like to point out that I appreciate the dynamic of the Cutie Mark Crusaders in this episode very much, because it seems as though they are trying to show that they have more of a group dynamic in that they take turns being the leader. Like, this time it was Applebloom, and while most people see Applebloom as the de facto leader, in Season 3 and Season 4, I feel like they let the other two Crusaders have chances at being leaders of the group. For example, back in Season 4, we had Twilight Time, where Sweetie Belle took more of a leadership position in that episode, which makes this episode even more ironic because I don't think she's one to talk about bad ideas.
It still seemed like that she was trying to be the wise one of the group, trying to get them to not go out during the rainstorm and whatnot. Although, if they did listen to her, then the episode wouldn't have continued as it had.
Well, yeah, that's a given. But I'm just saying, considering how she acted back when she was Sneaky Belle in Season 4, comparing her in this episode, she is much more the voice of reason.
When it comes to sort of outdoor adventures and sort of approaching things which pose a more physical threat rather than an emotional threat from peers and stuff, because obviously Scootaloo is very physically daring, and Applebloom is also, she's quite brave as well, being Applejack's little sister. Sweetie Belle always sort of gets roped into the role of being the really hesitant one, is this really a good idea, guys? We should go back to the safety sort of area. But I do find it interesting comparing, as you guys are saying, to Twilight Time, where she was the leader, she was the one pushing for this to become more popular and all this sort of stuff, while the other two there were sort of being slightly more hesitant. I thought that was quite interesting to look at.
Also,
like
Cutie Mark Crusaders are the best jailbreakers ever. I really enjoyed that scene, all seriousness. And Sweetie Belle's using her magic more, that's good to see.
Yes, no, I was about to say, she's getting much better with the magic, isn't she? Poor Scootaloo.
The only other thing that I can really think of to mention in this episode is that there were a few very nice, humorous touches throughout it. Yes, obviously there was a very heavy emphasis on slapstick once they introduced the idea of a rodeo clown, but I enjoyed the more subtle jokes, such as the two mob ponies that showed up twice in the episode.
Do they just carry a torch and a pitchfork around with them at all times?
You don't?
And how the hell do they light that torch?
We may never know.
These are the questions, people. These are the questions.
I was also going to say, I think it's quite good that before Trouble Who's... Is it Trouble Who's? It is Trouble Who's, isn't it? Before he was sort of... Trouble Shoes, that's right. Before he was sort of introduced, the slapstick, which obviously Dave Polsky is really well known for, was kept kind of to a bit of a minimum, at least compared to his normal episodes. But then, of course, after he was shown, it was just balls-to-the-wall slapstick the entire time. But I'm glad he at least held out for that long.
He managed to keep it reined in.
When he's not overdoing it, he's pretty good at the whole slapstick thing, so I appreciate that.
Does anybody else have any other topics that they want to go over?
We were talking about the mob mentality of, as we were watching the episode, we were talking about how Appleloosa had the mob mentality and they're just going to go wherever, always the guy with the pitchfork and the torches. I just wanted to point out that Sheriff Silverstar did a pretty good job of leading them on. They really didn't know anything. He is the instigator and is bad at keeping ponies in jail.
He may have been the instigator, but also in the beginning, he was the one trying to keep things under control. At least in the beginning, he was trying to keep things under control.
Well, I think we've reached the end of our discussion on this episode, and so I think I will invite each of our panelists, starting with Webshoter, to give their final thoughts.
It was a good episode, a bit like Bloom and Gloom. It was a bit on the slow side, but after it got going, it was actually pretty good. So I say give it a watch.
Theater?
Well, like I said, for a CMC episode, which I usually do not like, it's very well put together. Once you get past the predictable cliches like the whole mob mentality big misunderstanding card, or even the whole "can things get any worse?" they fall into a pit card, they're easy to ignore with good character development and a good lesson to teach, which they both had.
Reverb?
Initially, after finishing the episode, I really didn't like it after we talked about it a little bit in the review, especially the cutie mark aspect of it. I thought it goes quite a bit deeper, and I actually really enjoyed that. But the biggest sin of this episode to me is after the flashback where he gets his cutie mark, it all seems really quite predictable to me to what happens next, and there wasn't really any surprises after that, so it still registers rather average on my radar.
Gray?
If you take away the things that are good about MLP in general, for example, the animation that they always do is really good, and this season continuity, then there's not much left in the episode for me. It was still a bad episode, in my opinion.
Greg?
Overall, I thought it was a pretty good episode. It touches into some deeper parts of the mythology we haven't learned about before. Provides some fun characters, good slapstick. Pretty above average for me.
Well, I enjoyed the episode quite a bit despite its cliched nature. I thought it was a good CMC episode, and I hold it in a bit of higher regard than Bloom and Gloom from earlier in the season. So, that pretty much covers it for this episode of the Heroic Review. Thank you all for tuning in, and we hope to see you all again next time when we cover more fan fiction and more episodes of the show. So, from all of us here at the Heroic Review, goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, Dr. Nick.
See y'all later.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening.